Nero plays the role of a naive hero with no understanding of what is going on. It puts you in the perspective where his character acts more like a rookie going through dilemmas that he is not aware of, and he must understand all of it on his own. It follows along the same formula of what Devil May Cry 3 offered. Dante is once again voiced by Ruben Langdon after his performance from the game before.
Alright, I guess I got some time to kill.
His voice sounds more mature for Dante, acting more grown up and more like a mentor figure to Nero. Many of the other voice actors are also recognizable, but the credits seem to not give proper credit to those who voiced and did motion capture for the characters. My final thoughts are that everything you hear in the game is still good for today's AAA titles, and it does not get too old for something big like Capcom. Devil May Cry started off on the PlayStation 2 in December 2001, and it was created by Okami creator Hideki Kamiya. It received universal praise from both critics and gamers alike. Following up in 2003, Devil May Cry 2 was also another PS2 exclusive, but it suffered mixed reviews, with people disappointed in the game's less stylish action, cookie-cutter plot, and the weak weapon count. By February 2005, Devil May Cry 3 Dante's Awakening on the PlayStation 2 was more of a rehash by going back to basics and improved upon the controls with new fighting mechanics between guns, swords, speed, and defense. Even the weapon count was very big, and each weapon had action sequences that looked very stylish. It makes the second game more like a black sheep than everything else in the series. It is my all-time favorite game in the franchise, with awesome action and an awesome soundtrack altogether. Between Devil May Cry 3's release in retail and Devil May Cry 4's development, an animated series done by Capcom and Madhouse was made for television. It takes place between the first Devil May Cry and Devil May Cry 4, with Dante fighting off financial debt to help keep his business on its toes. For a 12-episode anime, it is pretty awesome for both the Japanese and English dubs. By the time a Devil May Cry 4 was announced in 2006, it was slated for the PlayStation 3 exclusive release. By 2007, Capcom made a bold move to make the game a multi-platform release by localizing the game for both the PlayStation 3, the Xbox 360, and the PC. By far, the game succeeded like the third game, but some flaws rendered it from receiving a higher score than before. For another great game in the franchise, we can only hope a fifth game will be made, as Devil May Cry 4 was well received. With a franchise that is so gnarly like Devil May Cry, you would believe that a game like this would be flawless overall. Sadly, that is not the case, as there are some things that are worth ranting about. Let us start off with the game's linear and critical path. To start off, you play the game by going from Fortuna Town to Sanctus' religious HQ as Nero, but then you go back where you came from when you play as Dante. It felt like it was more backtracking rather than going straight forward. Also, some of the enemies and bosses were pretty difficult for even the most inexperienced gamer to the series. This is usually reflected on the later bosses and enemies, as their AI seems way too advanced when playing as Dante. I would get extremely frustrated when I could not execute any stylish actions in the heat of battle. Speaking of bosses, most of them you had to fight a second time, and that detoured the process of having more than what was there. The game is on a next-generation system, so it would make sense for the game developers to put in more content either on a Blu-ray disc or DVD disc. Finally, there was not that much content for when completing the game on the numerous amount of difficulties. I mean, you do receive the Bloody Palace minigame, which is nice, but most of the other extras are concept art, character models, viewable cutscenes, a couple of costumes, and that's it. Come on, Capcom! You could have done better than that! You put in so much content in Devil May Cry 3, but why not more in the sequel? It chaps my hide! Do not fret, boys and girls, as there are so many things that will make this game have devils that will never cry. Now, what I really enjoyed about the game was the story being one that is back in basics, with a rookie learning everything in his forward path. The concept is just as simple as the previous games in the franchise, the controls are solid for a hack-and-slash action game, and the design for a next-generation system was riveting. I really like the originality that has a pair of half-demons that wield both swords and guns at the same time, and they both grow with newer abilities to obtain. Most of the bosses look very spectacular, and the level designs were very surreal in every right. Not to mention, the voice acting in the game sounded really good, as Capcom has been very lenient on their selection of voices for their games. Most of all, the action in the game was what made Devil May Cry 4 a worthy title to start up the 2008 roster of video games, and it was good enough to keep everyone entertained before the release of Metal Gear Solid 4 and Soul Calibur 4 in the summertime. A clash and battle of demons is what this game has become, as it shows how strong and accepting most people are to this gaming formula. While most prefer the God of War games on the PlayStation consoles, we have to remember that the genre started out with this series, as most of its library was groundbreaking for almost this whole decade. Devil May Cry 4 is worthy of both a buy and rental for those who need to tear away demons that can take a one-way ticket back to the underworld, as this game follows up on the first and third game with flying colors. Despite a few new and recurring snags, this game is more worth it to own in your collection of games, as it is now buyable at its new and affordable price tag. Devil May Cry 4 receives my blessing by being rewarded an 8 out of 10. Well, that takes care of another great review. Wonder what I'll review next. Oh, yeah.
Adios, kid.